Hi, Kyra.
Hi.
And he says hi too.
Oh my God. Hey, I would have mine, but his head fell off the other
Oh
day.
no.
So my dad had to stitch him. He's in surgery.
Oh my God. Well, it's great to see you again. I don't know if
Yes.
you remember we spoke last July.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was right before I think it was going to premiere at Popcorn Frights.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I see it's gained a lot of momentum since then. Just how are you feeling about everything?
Shocked and excited, and because at the time it was just like I was doing the film festival circuit, and then I had no expectations that it would get picked up or anything like that. So
Mhm.
the fact that it can be on a streaming service, and also you can buy or rent it and people can watch it at home now, I'm so excited.
Sure. So I watched it last night and it's just so good. Like you cover literally everything in it. And I've seen other people saying the same thing. Just how does it feel to be making such a positive name for yourself in this fandom?
I don't know. I guess it's like I don't really believe it. Because like in the documentary, it's something that I was like adjacent to for a long time. And through the process, I guess, yeah, through the process, I've gotten to know all these people and then become involved with them but in a different way. Obviously, I'm not involved in the series or anything, but
Sure.
this documentary in itself has continued to just make me feel a part of the Chucky family, and it's interesting. It's interesting to see. I feel even more involved than a year ago.
Sure. And I couldn't believe, so you never met any of them prior to doing this, like Brad, Don Mancini.
I met Dawn very, very briefly on the set of the Curse of Chucky reshoots in LA in like 2015. No, it would have to be before that, when I was like 13 or so.
Okay.
What is time? I had met Don very briefly then, but he was directing me as a puppeteer. I was one of Chucky's ankles for the few hours. So there was like no opportunity to have a full conversation. And then I very briefly met Fiona for like a makeup test for a movie with zombies in it. And she was actually going to play my zombie mom. But I was also, again, really young and it was very brief. So in reality, most of all these people I was actually having a full on conversation with for the first time.
Sure. Did she play your zombie mom or?
No, it ended up not happening, which I'm
Wow.
so bummed about. Otherwise, I would have been like, yeah, Fiona's my zombie mom, guys. But no.
Hey, and I love that you included people who aren't Chucky people necessarily, like Abigail Breslin and people like that. Can you talk about the decision behind that?
Yeah, I had a producer friend who suggested that it might be a good idea to get some outside perspective of people who are still in the industry and in either involved in horror or like love horror movies or something like that. So it was really just finding who I had connections to, who understood I was a filmmaker on a dime budget and wouldn't mind setting aside their time. So if anything, it also shows that these people who are in the documentary are just so kind-hearted themselves. But yeah, Abigail made sense because she was also a child actress, and she's in Scream Queens. And Lynn Shay, you can never go wrong. She is an icon in her own right in the horror genre, which I was super excited to interview her because I love Insidious.
Mhm.
And so she had also known my dad for a really long time, and I had only briefly met her. But yeah, it added an element I wasn't expecting to the documentary, and I'm happy that I had taken that suggestion and ran with it. Yeah.
Okay. And I also thought it was interesting. I mean, you really kind of keep yourself out of it until about three-quarters of the way through. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it was originally I had myself in the beginning of the film, but to me as an editor, it felt awkward because my dad didn't come in till Seed of Chucky. So once I decided that the documentary was going to go chronologically through the films, it kind of felt weird because I introduced myself as the filmmaker and involved in some way, but we don't get to seed until like 45 minutes down the road. And there wasn't really a way for me to interject my voice for any questions in the edit. And it just felt like I came out of nowhere again. Mm-hmm. And then the other opportunity to introduce myself would have been when we do get to Seed of Chucky, and a little bit earlier than it is now. But then I felt like it took away from my dad's entrance into the franchise and his experience on the films. So that's kind of where the third act break came in. And I do think it's a little, like, in retrospect, I would have loved to play around with finding somewhere earlier where I could come in. But a lot of the times I find with watching documentaries, they slow down in the third act. So I'm like, at least this keeps it interesting.
Right. And I feel like it kind of shifts focus a little bit. It's more heartfelt towards the end. You really talk about the family dynamic. Like, I was getting a little teary-eyed watching it. Yeah. And I feel like it's just something that people might not think of when they think of Chucky. Like, he's a little demonic doll.
Right.
So it's cool that you were able to introduce that.
Yeah, that was the main reason why I wanted to pursue this documentary, was for the personal aspect and those moments where we could talk about how hard it was for everybody. But I figured we needed to talk about everybody's work on it first before we talked about the impact it had on families and stuff. And we don't get to see that too often from horror documentaries, or even just like documentaries about filmmaking in general. Nobody's like, I didn't see my wife for 6 months and my daughter was 3 the next time I saw her after she was born, or something like that. We don't talk about that too much.
Sure. Now, throughout all your interviews, especially with your dad, was there anything that they told you where you were like, oh my God, like, I had no idea about this thing?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, actually, I didn't know per se that, I knew that nobody had given my dad molds or drawings or things like that when he started on Seed. I knew that he was given no resources to build Chucky from, but I didn't know, because obviously I grew up in a world with more technology, I didn't know he actually had to like take pictures of a VHS on the TV screen just to have reference images. That kind of blew my mind of like, wow, this really was made from scratch back in the early 2000s. And it's not talked about in the documentary, but in the director's commentary, my dad forgot this somehow in his interview. But after Seed of Chucky didn't do so well in the box office, Universal threw out all of his molds and everything again. So going into Curse, he had to make the doll from scratch again. And I didn't know about that.
Oh my God. I give him credit for
his like tenacity.
Yes. Okay. And then just another thing, I also really liked all the little details about it. I loved how the nail polish changed for each film. It was just, I'm like, is she going to do purple for Seed? And you did.
Yes.
Yeah. It just went into planning all of that.
I think once I had a rough cut, a very boring, like 3-hour long rough cut, I could start to see how it was going to shape. And that's when I decided that I should go through the movies chronologically first. And I knew I needed something visually to separate each film. And with the VHSs and the DVDs and the Blu-ray, I felt like it was a good visual of telling us how long this franchise had been going on without, you know, showing it in our face with the giant time title card. And then I'm really, like, in narrative, I'm really picky about my color palettes as a filmmaker. So in thinking of these shots of just a VHS, you know, player, I was thinking, how can I make this a little bit more interesting? What can I add to the frame? And so then the nail idea came in, where I was like, if it's my hand, at least I can coordinate, you know, some press-on nails to the color of the movie. It's actually funny. Somebody that reviewed the movie, when it was the Bride VHS, I put on a white dress and a leather jacket and black nails. And somebody was like, and you can so clearly see that it's a Tiffany doll's hand. And I was like, oh my God, are my hands that small that you thought it was a doll? It was funny.
So you did a good job of it.
Yes, apparently I faked you out. Last time I checked, Tiffany doesn't have a handful of freckles, but I'll let it slide.
Hey, trying to think what else. So, it's going to be available on Screenbox and other digital platforms, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Cool.
And I think and then I did do some like bonus feature stuff for the DVD as well as the director's commentary. I made sure that I put some things in there. There's like a segment in there that I had to cut for time. That's included in the bonus features as well. So tried to give more.
Sure. And I love that it kind of ends with everyone heading off to Canada for the show. Do you see yourself maybe chronicling that at some point?
I don't know. Definitely like there's yeah, because if I documented the series, it just that document like Living with Chucky could have been a whole other hour at that point because they were already had done season 2 or were going off to film season 2 or just came back from season 2 when Living with Chucky started its circuit, and it just felt like it's a whole new cast. So I didn't want to go too far. Also COVID, I was going to go shoot some BTS for the series, but the border was shut and then their COVID restrictions were really still crazy for season 2. But I am hoping to go this season and do some interviews on set, even if it's just for standalone things for YouTube and kind of document a bit of what that process is going to be. But yeah, it was kind of just like, and we're gonna continue, and that's the end of the thing. Because I was like, I literally cannot go to Canada, so that's all right.
And there's new cast members now, so that would be cool to hear.
Yeah, see how their experience as somebody who's closer to my age is involved in it. And I actually got the opportunity to work with Lachlan Watson, who plays Gigi. Glenda for a music video that I did towards the end of last year. And that was my first exposure to anybody in the newer generation of Chucky, and they're amazing, the coolest. I love them so much. And we got a chance to like tell our Chucky stories to each other. And I was like, okay, it really is just like the family keeps growing. And it's cool to see that it's still all the same sentiments with a newer cast, because still everyone behind the camera is the same anyhow.
Sure. Great. Well, Kyra, we're coming up on our time. Were there any quick last words that you just wanted Chucky fans to know?
Every time somebody asks that, I'm like, I don't know. I guess that if you're an older Chucky fan coming into the documentary, I hope you can take away a newfound appreciation for a doll you already love. And if you're new, I hope you're able to follow along and maybe find a new horror icon or killer that you will like now.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.